Hi, everybody. This is Jim Saffron with Pure Vintage Media, and welcome to our podcast interview. Recently, I spent some time with a friend of mine, Kim Shaheen. Kim has had an illustrious career as a session guitar player, playing with a pretty diverse group of artists and bands, including the Alan Price Band, Blondie Chaplin, Waddy Wachtel, America, and Miles Davis's longtime bass player, Angus Thomas. Now, aside from this, Kim has also got a collection of rare and vintage guitars, and I want you to get ready to drool because he's going to show off this collection to us, including a 1953 Fender Stratocaster prototype. Stick around. I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. And now, join me in welcoming Kim Shaheen. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Pure Vintage Media and our podcast interview. And I think I can call you an old friend. My wife would say, well, is he a friend or is he a Facebook friend? But I was looking back through our text back and forth, and we go back to 2021. So, you know, I would say that's a friend. Welcome, Kim Shaheen, to our podcast interview. It's nice to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, you and I have been communicating on there for years.
It's you know what, and it took us a while to get it going today, but that's just two old guys, right? What can
Yeah,
I
well,
say?
like I said, I didn't know whether to go grab a third grader from the school to help me with the tech or not yet, but we got there.
I go way back to the earliest days of internet. I mean, I was selling it when nobody knew what it was, and now I have to go to my adult daughter and say, "How do you do this?" So time moves on. But
I
one way
still
or
use AOL for my email.
Yeah, I know. I was going to blame everything this morning or this afternoon on AOL, but here we are. Well, welcome, Kim. You are a presence in my circle on Facebook, not only for humorous political observations, vintage guitars, and of course, you and I have talked about different groups that we loved growing up. So it's really cool. You grew up in England. You've lost your accent completely. How did you end up in Arizona of all places? Before you answer, I know you've lived in different areas in the US, but give us an idea what brought you to the States.
Well, actually, I was born in LA.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah, in 52. And my dad worked for a guy at a machine company. My dad had asthma, which I didn't realize. And the guy moved his company to Arizona for my dad in like 57, 56.
Wow.
So I grew up in Arizona. I went to elementary school here. I went to high school in Phoenix for 2 years. My mom moved me to Hawaii for my junior year in 69, 68, 69. And then my mom said, I, I'm 16. And she goes, would it be good for your music career if we moved to? And I knew she was going to say Hollywood. She
Yeah.
said London. You can't ask a 16-year-old kid, boy, if he wants to move to London in the 60s. So we moved to London in 69. I got there just in time to see the Stones across the street with King Crimson opening, I believe it was. I don't remember them. Um, yeah, it was nuts. And so I went to the equivalent of an American high school. People called me to prank me. I got a prank call going. Steve Winwood called. My mom's like, Steve Winwood called. So I call um what's his name at Island Records? God, I can't think of his Chris Blackwell. And I go, Steve Winwood called. He gave me his number and I called and went out and started hanging with Stevie Winwood and Chris Wood, introduced them to Frisbees. Found out about 10 years ago it was a prank call. I wish I could thank those whoever did it. Um, One of my earlier people I met through Nick Mason was a guy named Sid
Barret.
from Pink Floyd,
Yep.
Sid Barrett. And Sid had me get him Brill Cream from the American store. and he put it in with Mandrex, which is Quaaludes, and put it in his hair. I never asked why. It was weird enough, but he would call me from the hospital in Gloucester and go, can I use your contact info to get out for the weekend? And I'm like, yeah, I never said no. And uh, word got
Wow.
around that I was friends and had dealt with a guy named Walter Midkiff. His real name, his stage name was Dewey Martin from
Sure.
Buffalo
Buffalo
Springfield.
Spring. Yeah.
And when I went to England, people associated me with that, thought I was full of bull, but whatever. But it got in the local papers, Musical Express, and the other one. God, I can't think. It's been so long. And I ended up with an A&R guy, a guy named Paul Atkinson, who was the lead guitarist from the Zombies. And I'd go
Wow.
over to his apartment. He had the guitar on the wall, never took it down. He says, I want you to go meet a guy that I'm working with. He, I'll tell you his name, but he has a stage name, but he hates it. His name is Reg Dwight. I'm like, okay. Well, the stage name is Elton John. I go, I never heard of him. He goes, nobody has. I go, then why doesn't he change it? Well, he's done videos with T Rex and he's recorded in Europe under it, but never call him by it. His name is Reg. I'm like, okay. So I went during Tumbleweed Connections and went in. And when I walked in, the guy from Ian Matthews' Southern Comfort Band was playing steel, and that ended up being Country Comfort.
Yep.
And uh, it just kind of went from there. My best friend, because of my connection to Walter, well, Dewey, was a guy named Jerry Beckley. And Jerry played piano and bass, and we had an engineer named Dewey Bennell at Morgan Studios, who are the two guys in America.
Yep.
And Dewey does not remember being an engineer. By the way, I've had people contact him, and he's like, he wasn't an engineer. And I go, yeah, he was. We did sessions for the Beatles producers and all these people, and he was
Now they
behind
were
the
they were
spectrum.
they were they were like army brats living in London at the time.
Yeah, Air Force.
Air Force. Okay.
Right. And Dan wasn't there yet, Dan Peak, or he'd been there and left. And so I was there in between, and I would play guitar, and Jerry would play piano and bass. And I had my Ricky 12. I guess I was one of the only three people with one in England. And I had two Stratocasters and my bandmaster, my blonde bandmaster. And we did probably 50 to 100 sessions all over the place. And I remember Chris Neal, the guy that did the Beatles, was a Beatle producer. And he said, yeah, I came to, I think, EMI with a band, and they didn't want anything to do with it. So I left. So he took the Rolling Stones elsewhere.
Well,
But
we,
I,
we we've talked about Elton John, that and people don't realize this, but he was very, very tight with the guys in Gentle Giant. In fact, there's a story in Derek Schulman's book that he just released where he confided in them that he wanted to change his name to Elton John, and they laughed at him. They said, Elton John? I can't believe you want to do that. I mean, he actually recorded with them, he toured with them. Um, it's really interesting, but he was very close, and that went back to their first iteration, which was Simon Dupree and the Big Sound. That was the original group. They had a number of pop hits. By the way, the other newspaper you were talking about was Melody Maker.
Melody Maker.
Yeah. So anyway, this is really interesting. When I grew up in Van Nuys, I worked at a record store that was owned by a expat, I guess, and he called it Records Ltd, which tells you kind of everything you need to know about who owned it. It was somebody from England, and he used to import Melody Maker magazine, New Music Express, and he was the first entrepreneur to bring English pressed albums to the United States to sell. And so we were like, I mean, we had people and artists from all over the world that would order from us. We were pretty special. And I was in high school. I had the best job in the world. But that's how I discovered a lot of these unknown English groups. And you mentioned the whiskey. And that what would happen is these groups would all want to play the whiskey. The whiskey was the place that they all wanted to play when they came to LA. And it didn't matter how big they were. It could be Yes, it could be Gentle Giant. It could be, I mean, I saw them all roll through there. And so I was familiar with English music for a long time. I had no idea. I had always thought that you were born in England, but you're actually born in the US. That's why you don't have an accent.
Oh yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite was Love Sculpture.
Sure. Oh my
And I
God.
tracked down Dave Edmunds' Blonde Dot 335, but the guy Holter that has it says it's a forever guitar. And I'm like, I get that. It's like the prototype Strat I have,
Yeah.
which I'm wearing the shirt, by the way. It says Fender Stratocaster. Since 1954, I want
Yeah.
shirts made that say that, but with a cross through it, and then say 1953.
53. Okay. I thought it was 52. Okay. Um,
And well, it's the first prototype with, but it has only a three-spring cavity. The first ones before that didn't go through the body. They had like a Jazzmaster style tremolo on them on
yeah.
top in 53. And all the pictures that I have of it, Leo took in 53. So it's pretty special to
Well,
me. Yeah,
we want
Love
to talk
Sculpture.
about, yeah, we want, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please.
I heard that album and I thought Dave Edmunds, I go, what an amazing blues player. And then I
Yeah.
found out later he wasn't a blues guy, he was a pop guy who was just winging it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This
Yeah.
album, Summertime, 3 o'clock in the morning, all that stuff just had such an effect on me. And the Gentle Giant records, all of that stuff just killed me.
Yeah. There was, I'm looking at your credentials. Oh my God. Um, so I'm going to go through a couple of these and maybe tell some stories. You played with Alan Price from the original Animals.
Yeah, yeah, I answered an ad. And do you play guitar?
Yes, I do.
Then you know about tube amplifiers. So we did a tour of England up through the north, and we did all the Air Force bases. And I remember I'm playing through my amp, and I'm like, you are cleared to come in on runway 3. Over and over at every base because it's a tube amp, and the other guys were horn players. And I'm the only one where, you can hear what's coming through as the aircraft are taking off and landing.
Oh, so you were
And
picking it up on your amplifier.
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, it was pretty amazing. I shouldn't have been in that band anyway, but I was. I got picked for gigs because I was an American over and above the talent that I had. Because I realized here in America, if you could get an English guy in your band or a singer, you were it. And over there, apparently, it was the opposite. If you got an American, they thought, "Oh my God, yeah, we got an American." But I was 16 and 17 and didn't really think about it like that.
Yeah, you
So,
gave them authenticity, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
uh, I music. What was the other paper? The Melody Maker.
Ability maker.
Yeah, I answered an ad, and I remember it said, "Looking for guitarists must be fluent on 12 string." And I answered that, but a few places below, it had the ad for the new guitar player after Peter Banks left Yes. And I go, I can't get that gig. I'm not good enough. But I went, and it was in the basement of a bar where it wasn't even a concrete floor, it was just dirt. So I went and answered the ad about must be fluent on 12 string. And there were these three guys, apparently that had an album out, but I wasn't familiar with it. and it was Michael Rutherford, Tony Banks, and Peter Gabriel. And they recorded 3 of my tunes. Peter wrote me a letter saying they didn't have time to work on them because they were rehearsing the members. Phil Collins wasn't there yet. They had a guy named John Mayhew who had played drums. And I remember playing one of my tunes, and I'm about 3 chords in on the 12 string. And Michael Rutherford, I'll never forget it. He goes, "This guy's too good. I'm going back to bass," which didn't mean anything to me, but I remember him saying it. And uh, he and I are now in touch. As of about 2 weeks ago, he got a hold of me. And it, crazy. And Peter sent
I've
me,
seen that letter. For those of you that may think that this might be a little burnishing of his reputation, that's an authentic letter. I've seen that. You've shared that with people on our network. Man, that's unbelievable.
yeah, he sent me the copy of Trespass, and it was basically it starts, "Here's a copy of the album as promised." And I treasure it. It's actually up on my dresser next to a picture of the puppy that Al Ortiz and I took care of. Actually, Al is back. He's bass player for Stevie Nicks, but
Yeah.
I lived with him for 13 years, and then I bought this house a year ago. So he just got back. Um, because of my medical, he comes over and hangs with me, which is really nice. So they're going back out in a week to finish. They had to make up 2 months of dates because she fell and fractured her shoulder.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to share this because I think it's funny now, but they didn't
Yeah,
think it
please.
at the time. Al sent me a text going, "I'm coming home." And I go, "Great." And he's like, "No." And there's a little meme, and I blow it up, and it says, "Stevie fractured her shoulder." And I'm like, "Oh." So I get a hold of Waddy, right? The MD.
Yeah, yeah.
And I go, "Dude, I'm sorry about the tour." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh, great. I just told Waddy the tour's down, and he did not know about it."
Wow. That,
Not the first time I've gotten in the middle of something like that, but now it's funny. I hope you're not watching this, Waddy.
boy, wouldn't that be great for us? Pure vintage.
Oh, man.
So, did you play on John Barleycorn Must Die?
No, I didn't. I got invited to, but I was not in the same league as those guys. But I did introduce them to frisbees.
There you go.
You know,
Uh,
I mean, yeah.
yeah, a friend of mine who actually makes guitars, Michael D. Temple, out in the San Fernando Valley. You know Michael?
He called me like a month ago.
Michael's an awesome guy, and he's got
Yes,
some history. I mean,
yes.
he played on Dave Mason's solo album, the one that was
Alone
all colored.
Together. The one
Yeah,
I've got it. Yeah.
yeah. So, and here's another little connection. I grew up with a guy whose dad, uh, and now I'm having a hard time remembering his name, but he was a big wheel. His dad was the I guess the CEO of that record company at the time, Dave Mason's. Can't recall the name right now, but wow, there's so many connections here. Anyway, Michael D. Temple also played with the band, and he was
Right.
in
With that
Scorsese's.
Firebird.
Yeah, and he was in Scorsese's film, The Last Waltz. And I
He's
remember
got a
him
credit
telling
in it.
me, what's that?
He's got a credit in the movie.
He does, and I think one time he shared with me his royalty check, and it's like 3 cents or something like that. It's a ridiculous amount. Well, that's really interesting. Now, also, you played. I think this is a really good friend of yours, Blondie Chaplin.
Oh,
Played with
Blonde.
the
We
Beach
just
Boys.
talked. We talked like 3 hours ago about Jamaica and how it's going. I sent money there through AmeriCares
Yeah.
for food, and he's always we video chat like every week, and we've just been in touch continually. We might text 5, 10 times a day. I was in the band we had was called Blondoon and the Sensitive Mongrels. And we played out under that name. And it was the honor and privilege of playing guitar, standing next to him while he's singing Sail on Sailor. It's almost unreal.
When I was still living in, I think high school, I think he was in the band at the time, kind of as a true official member of the band. I guess when Brian Wilson was no longer touring, but it wasn't just a side gig. He was actually a member of the band. And I think I remember seeing him at Universal Amphitheater. Had to be one of the Beach Boys played a lot back then when I was in high school. They were everywhere. That's amazing. Would love to have him on the show. Boy, he played with Rick Danko. He played with, I think I might have seen him play with Bonnie Raitt at one time, but I can't swear to it. But I think
Yeah,
he
he
was
sends me pictures of that. He sent me a picture of him with Danko and Bonnie, but he told me not to put them up yet because he's keeping them for his own
understood.
deal. And the stuff he's doing for Brian Wilson is under wraps still. But he
Yeah.
sends me pictures of him and Brian when Brian wasn't doing well. And I won't get into the management deal and problem everyone had with them. But yeah, when Brian was touring at the end, Blondie, I went and saw him, and he is all over the stage, back and forth playing that gold top, and it really is pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's really quite the talent.
And he was in the Rolling Stones for almost 2 decades, along with my friend Bernard Fowler. And Bernard and I talk a lot too.
Oh, you're beating me to my punch here. I got all the, I know where these guys played. We talked about Paul Atkinson. Did you play on Tumbleweed Connection? Are you on any of those songs that not
I
credited?
thought I was, but I could not swear to that at this point.
Okay.
I thought I
Yeah.
was on Love Song. It's possible. I have replaced people's parts. There's a show called Grey's Anatomy
Yeah,
that
sure.
has one of the themes is called Breathe by Anna Nalick. And well, she's not going to see this. I replaced her guitar parts. She doesn't know it.
So you're kind of like, in a way, you have people that are on they're on the personnel of an album, but you're more like the wrecking crew. You were true session player, people that backed up the Monkees, the Beach Boys, things like that.
Oh, I've got Nesmith's 12-string Gretsch here.
I want to get to that. We got to talk about your collection here in a minute. Alvino Bennett.
Oh, Alvino is such a good close friend.
Oh my gosh,
Alvino,
what a
he,
drummer.
he's amazing. He played with me. There's 3 people basically I've met everybody through. One is Rob Lawrence, who got me the prototype. This is crazy. We went over to a guy, Randy. I won't bring up his last name at this point, who had Mighty Might. Anyway, I got a Mint 51, what's called the No Caster. I just call it Mr. Caster because Rob doesn't like the name. Rob Lawrence. Don't call it a No Caster. Okay. Anyway, so I picked up this 51 Mint Caster with the matching amp. And we drove about.
That's got the black guard on it.
Let's see here.
Yep,
Is that showing up?
it is. Beauty. Wow, that
Yeah.
is, man.
And we drove about 18 minutes, 15 miles where I bought the prototype. Same day. I was out there for the Amigo guitar show, and this was on Thursday or Wednesday. So it's before the show even happened. And I got both of those with like I said, within a half hour of each other. So What an amazing day. When I finally got to the show, I was stuck at the motel. Well, I don't mind saying I'd had a stroke 4 years ago. If Paul Warren, my friend, can talk about it, and my friend Howie Hupperman can talk about having cancer, then I can talk about this. And I wasn't really able to get back to the show. And Rick King brought me a 63 Mint Firebird 1 over that
Sweet.
I got. And I go, I don't have the money on him. He goes, well, Peter Huggins said you're good for it. So just send it to me. So I did that deal. So I got those three guitars inside of 2 days of each other. And I've been incredibly blessed. I tell people organized religion is like calling the insurance company to see a doctor. So I talk to whoever created the universe and go, hey, I want to be part of whatever it is that all of this is, and leave it at that. So I don't go through a middleman.
Well, can I nick that from you? I like that.
Absolutely.
All right,
It's
all
like the difference between a line and exaggerating. If there's money involved, it's lying.
right. Oh my goodness. See, so Alvino Bennett, I was going to say Ray, who's also very
Oh,
interesting
Brian
individual.
Ray, yeah.
No, Brian Ray, yeah, but Alvino Ray was like the man who introduced the world to the electric guitar.
Oh,
By the way,
REY, yeah.
yeah, by the way, do you know Lynn Wheelwright?
I'm only familiar with him because I saw his exhibit at the MIM,
Okay.
the Musical Instrument Museum, put together by the founder of Target. And I'm online on Facebook because of him. Facebook is the only social media I have, no Instagram or anything else, because that way I can keep in touch with Bernard and whoever, no matter where they are in the world touring. And it's just easier with the one. That way I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to get third graders to help me with the tech.
The only reason I bring that up is I did a interview with John Thomas of Kalamazoo Gals, and I'd known of Lynn but never met him, and he reached out to me last week, and we had like before I knew it, we had a 2 hour conversation. Wonderful resource. Oh my gosh. And for those that don't know, among other things, he was one of the authors of the Pinecaster book, which is something he did with Nacho Banos and Billy Gibbons.
I have a
And
copy. John actually came out and visited me about 2 months ago, but my memory is so fuzzy. He had to remind me that he was here and took pictures. And it's like, oh, yeah.
yeah, he was a wonderful interview, and just that whole chapter of Gibson is just fascinating for those that don't know. But Lynn saw that and he reached out to me, and it's amazing how this circle just continues to grow. And it's all a lot of it's focused on vintage guitars, which I've been doing for decades. So, oh man, all right, I'm going to get back to my list here. Angus Thomas.
Angus, I met, well, like I said, there were three people basically that introduced me to everyone, which was Rob Lawrence. That's how I met Les Paul and a bunch of people. Got to know Les well enough that he knew me by name. My friend Howie Hupperman, who has cancer, but he's beating it through a thing called Keytruda. And he's also my manager informally. He goes, you can call me whatever you want. Actually, I talked to him earlier today. And he managed Poison and Guns N' Roses and a bunch of other people. And then my friend Jeffrey Sessler. Now, Jeffrey's the one that brought me into the Miles Davis, Rolling Stones, and Waddy circle, which is interesting because all my friends otherwise were English. So
He's a
Jeff,
kind of he's a manager, or is he a musician?
oh, Jeffrey,
Yeah.
he's not a musician. He's
Okay.
more of the guy that facilitates. Now, his dad, Freddie Sessler, his name starts on page 2 or 3 of My Life by Keith. Basically, he was Keith's father figure.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I won't go into on here how they knew each other and what happened because that's kind of private. But Freddie was part of that circle, and he's in the index at the end because he's in all over that book. And Jeffrey is his son. And Jeffrey and I met here in Phoenix when he was managing a set of apartments that I ended up renting. And we just became fast friends. And I think it was because Jeffrey was part of all of that. But in Phoenix, nobody got that.
Mm.
You'd mention the Stones or whatever, and it's like, we're in Phoenix. And I think I was probably about the only other person that connected to him in a way that understood what was actually happening in his head and going on. And then he moved to LA, and I moved to LA, and he invited me down to a club called The Joint. And it took me a while, and he finally sent friends over to grab me, and they brought me. And after that first visit, I never missed a show. And then Jeffrey passed away in 2005, and I ended up inheriting that show with Waddy Wachtel, Phil Jones, Brett Tuggle, who's
Mm.
played with everyone,
Yeah.
Rick, the bass player, Rosas from Joe Walsh and Neil Young's band. And we had Roger Daltrey, Robert Plant, Woody, Keith. As a matter of fact, when I met Keith, I go, "Yeah, I'm friends of Freddie." And he goes, "Well, that your problem, in it." He cracked me up. He was just funny. And it
You are a
just,
walking encyclopedia, brother. I had no idea. I really had no
um,
idea. We met each other through vintage guitars, basically, and then I learned more about your background. But in doing some research, I was just blown away by everybody you've played with. It's what an amazing life. My God.
I've been very blessed. Paul Warren and I were supposed to get together for, well, I called it the Bad Company, but it was actually, I guess, the Brian Howe Project. And we were going to put together a three-piece, Paul and I on guitars and Brian on vocals. And then he passed away.
Yeah, unexpectedly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was
Boy, you guys,
unfortunate.
now that would have been interesting talking politics, the two of you and Brian.
Oh, Brian was a trumper, but he was English, so we didn't care.
Right. Paul, I used to look before he passed away, Paul would do the most incredible, and you knew it was done out of love, but he had the best put downs of Brian. Brian would come back with something else, call him an old man. But you could tell when Brian passed away, it really hurt Paul. He loved that man. And I know I'm trying to talk Paul into an interview, and we've talked recently. And he said, "I'm done with music. I want to talk about the cat, the feral cat that you raised, and you were able to tame it. I want to talk to you about your chef skills, and and I wanted to talk to him about the Dodgers and politics."
Oh,
And he said,
yeah.
and he says to me, he goes, maybe we can do that. So that's hopefully on the board. But these are some of the amazing circle or people that are in my circle that I just love conversing with pretty much every day, and you're one of them.
Yeah,
Um,
he played with Rod Stewart for
oh my
what,
God,
a decade or longer, and Joe
yeah,
Cocker and
Joe
David
Cocker.
Marks and all those people. And I was like, yeah, and he had an original Explorer. His band
Yeah,
was called Explorer.
that's
Matter of
right. They
fact,
played
that's
the
another
whiskey all the
person
time. Yeah,
through Rob Lawrence. That's how I know Paul, is through Rob Lawrence.
fabulous guitar. There's enough YouTube videos of him playing. Fabulous guitar player. I really like the gentleman. I've had some great conversations with him, and we've really bonded over the Dodgers. Huge Dodger fan, which I used to end up any message that I was having with him with basically "Go Dodgers," whether it was relevant or
Yes,
not. Go Dodgers.
go
Uh,
Dodgers. Yeah.
uh,
My
did any
grandfather left me a baseball signed by the New York Dodgers.
Brooklyn Dodgers?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah. Gave it to
Wow,
my son.
wow. Um, just to get back to Angus, did he
Oh,
play with Miles Davis?
he was Miles' bass player for a long time. Um, the first concert, well, it wasn't Angus. The first concert I ever went to when I was 13 was Miles Davis, and it was Ron Carter. Um, God, my memory's going. Herbie, um, Rashad Roland Kirk,
Wow. Oh, man.
and what's his name on drums? I can't think of his name, but it was his drummer forever. Uh,
Hmm.
oh well, and Miles, and uh, that was my first concert. Even though I'm not a jazz guy and I couldn't play it, it was like I got to go see this guy.
The
So
first
that was
time I
my
heard
first show.
the first time I heard Bitches Brew, I broke, and this is a true story. I broke out into a sweat. I didn't quite understand all the music the first playthrough, and it just completely grew on me. My favorite Miles album is Jack Johnson, I think it's called, about the boxer.
Yeah,
And it's got some great cuts on there. I think John McLaughlin's on that, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway,
yeah.
well,
Through Jeffrey, I met the Miles Davis guys, and it was Vince Wilburn, and Vince is Miles' nephew. And so I was part of that whole deal. And we would go to the Captain Tennille's recording studio up off of not Roscoe, might have been Roscoe, over down off north of Encino. Uh, God, I can't remember the name of that place. And that's the place where they would redo the Miles mixes and stuff. And God, what? Well, I'm not going to try and remember because I'm not
yeah,
remembering. Oh, Ricky. Ricky was playing guitar. Oh my God, that guy was amazing. I forget his last name, but it was like Mickey Mouse or something like that. Not Mouse, but it was close to that. And I remember he laid down a track, and I'm like, oh, I don't quite get it. Then he laid down another track over it, and it's like, oh my God, they
yeah.
fit together so well. It was just amazing. And so when Jeffrey, I'd only been in LA like 8 months, and we had the show at the Joint. They'd moved it from the Mint to the Joint, and he gave me a show at El Cid that was mine. And other people that had been there for years are like, who the hell is this guy? And I had Angus on bass, Alvino on drums, and sometimes Vince on drums. And ah, time of my life, time of my life.
Mm,
Well, compared to when I was 16, that was more the time of my life in London.
yeah.
But then to redo it was just, yeah. So that's how I met Angus and Alvino. And I had no idea Alvino was in Robin Trower's band for decades, and
Yes.
then Dave Mason's until later. And I didn't know who Angus was at the time until later.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember
So,
when Robin Trower left, by the way, Procol Harum, and his first show at the Whiskey. And first off, the buzz was, wow, he kind of sounds a little bit like Hendrix, and that was his idol. And he shows up at the Whiskey, the first show, and he's wearing a Hendrix t-shirt to add to the legend. Um, Robin Trower is still a great guitar player to this day. And interesting as a vintage guy, it's interesting that 3-bolt Fenders don't bother him at all. He still plays a
yeah.
3-bolt
I
Fender.
originally saw him at the Lyceum New Year's Eve '69 with Procol Harum, and
Wow. Yeah.
Argent played.
Yeah.
And that night, Lennon
Large.
showed up with Yoko and Keith Richards. And I saw one of the rock and roll circuses where Yoko did not sing.
Thank God.
And when I hung out with I hung out with Keith Reed, who
Keith
wrote
Reed.
for Procol
Yeah.
Harum, and I got a hold of Matthew Brook because in England they didn't idolize those people the way they do here, and
Yeah.
they were in the phone book. You could
Wow.
call them in the phone book. Same thing with Willie Dixon. Basically, when he lived in Burbank, his number was listed till he died.
Really? Yeah. I saw the thing that was consistent through all of Procol Harum was Gary, of course, Gary Brooker. And
Yes.
I saw them in Durham, one of the last tours before he passed away. And funny as can be, I mean, he took a break about halfway through. He said, "Listen, we're in our 70s or whatever it was." He goes, "Prostate's not like it used to be. We'll be right back." But they were they were such a favorite of mine, and probably one of my top five favorite drummers of all time, BJ Wilson.
Oh
Just,
yeah.
oh my God, there's nobody that played like him. Never got the credit. Just wow. And to see
Another
them live,
drummer, another drummer never got really the credit. The guy from the Rascals.
yes,
They didn't even have a bass player, and he was just, oh my God, that guy was amazing. I can't think of his name offhand, but
either
and
can
it's
I.
weird when I moved to Hawaii, they weren't up on current music, and they loved the Young Rascals, who changed their name, to the Rascals. And it was weird because I lived in an apartment complex, and Don Ho lived in the penthouse with his girlfriend, but his house is where his wife was. And
Tiny,
I was a
tiny
surfer,
bubbles. Yeah.
and I was
Were
in
you?
Hawaii Five O and some other of the shows as a surfer.
Were you really? So I grew up surfing up and down the California coast. Not as good as a lot of my friends, but went on all the adventures and I didn't really. You were a surfer.
Oh, I
Wow.
loved it. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like 15.
Yeah. There was a liberation feeling to that whole thing. A lot of my friends were on the high school sports teams. You can still see pictures of them. They're doing their gridiron pose and football tucked under their arm. But the group of us, none of us wanted to cut our hair. So what was our sport? Our sport was surfing. So
Wow.
we would go on these weekend trips and just camp out and God, yeah, if you were a surfer back in the early 70s, that was a lot of fun. Just it was very liberating as a high schooler. That's all anyway, I'm drifting off here as I go through your history. All right, man. All right, I think I've covered most of your, probably not, what I've been able to uncover from you and doing a little bit of research. Oh, yeah, we talked about this before we started, but um, Prescott Niles from the Knack.
Yes.
And I related to you that I was actually teammates in Little League with Burton Avere, which is, I tell people that I show them the picture. They don't believe it, but yeah, that was a great for a pop group to break into radio play in LA at the time. They were good. They were
Yeah, I
really a
think
good.
I sent you the picture of me with Prescott, myself, Randy Seal from Strawberry Alarm Clock, and
Yeah,
Lawrence Huber, which
McCartney.
was
Yeah,
didn't last long, but we had fun.
yeah. Was that so? Do you play anymore at all, or is it?
A little bit. It feels kind of razory on my fingers,
Yeah.
but with the new music production company, um, well,
Is
they
there
told
more
me
stuff
not to
coming
go
from
into
you?
it. Huh?
Yeah, you don't need to reveal anything, but are we going to see more stuff from you?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
Basically, I'm the gear guy, and then my other friend will be doing engineering. And then the other guy is doing all the business. He's already working on licensing. We're going to be doing mastering, publishing, like I said, licensing for music, TV, gaming, and movies. And we're
Sweet.
working on a Netflix documentary for my gear.
Oh, that's terrific. Um, so before we get into some of your gear, which is a fascinating collection, had you also always been a collector, or did you come
Ye-
into it later in life? I know
Um,
you.
I got my Ricky 12 that is on all those sessions, including I loaned it to my friend for John Lennon's Double Fantasy. But I bought it in '66, took it to England, used it on a ton of sessions over there, you know. Uh, but I met a friend of mine like in '79, Mark McGee, who showed me a thing called the Rare Bird Column, which was written by Rob Lawrence.
Okay, good.
And it's got like five of the rare guitars. And I'm like, I've got four of those. And I go, Mark, I go, do you like these? And he goes, yeah. So we go to my Ford L8 LTD. I've got 14 guitars in the trunk. Mark becomes my best friend at that point. Anyway, it says, it's written by Rob Lawrence. And I remember 818-991-5759. And I call and he goes, how'd you get the number? I go, dude, you put it in the article. Oh, well, I wouldn't do it. Well, how'd I get it? Well, you called the magazine. I go, no, I called you. And then Rob and I became fast friends at that point. It's like 79 or 80. And just at that point, I become obsessed with equipment, buying stuff from Rick Nielsen, from Groon, uh, Elderly, Stan Werben, uh, from Mandolin Brothers, all these places. Norm Harris and I became fast friends.
Sure.
Just everybody that I could deal with, I was like addicted.
When I was in high school, hung out at Norm's all the time. I mean, it weren't that many vintage stores in LA at the time, and to have that in the Valley, I'm going to tell a quick story. I bought a Mustang guitar when I first moved to North Carolina, lonely as can be, just didn't have any instruments. Bought a Mustang for $50 in a McDonald's parking lot. It was in pieces, put it together, and had that guitar for, I don't know, 30 years. And then I ended up selling it at a guitar show to Japanese collectors that were all over Mustangs at the time. This must, I don't know, probably about 10, 15 years ago. And I missed it. I'm really bummed out. I'm at Norm's visiting family probably about 10 years ago, and I'm looking up on his wall, and there's my Mustang. And I said, "Where'd you get it?" And and it wasn't Norm. Norm wasn't at the store at the time, but he said, "We bought it from some Japanese collectors." So the route that thing took from Raleigh, lived in Baltimore, moved to Charlotte. This thing went to Japan, and somehow it got back to LA. It was just, it's like it's like that traveling pants, movie. It just, you never know where these guitars with provenance and everything else, where they're going to end up. They change hands so many times for the most part. If you're lucky enough to get an original owner, one owner piece, well, that's special. But I've sat here and I've watched your acquisition of some of these fine instruments. I'm going, who's his banker? You must have made a lot of money through the years to be able to do that. And boy, you've really, and you've shared it with everybody, which is nice. You don't just tuck them away. You shared some of your acquisitions and some of the stories that you've gone through to get these. Do you want to show some of them off? Do you mind?
No, they're meant to be played. They're musical instruments.
Brother.
Here, let's see if I can get it. Is it the prototype? Well, let me see if I can see it. And the way you can tell, whoa, don't fall over,
Is
Mr.
this
Proto. I
50?
call it Mr. Proto. It's got
This
the
is a
three spring
53?
cavity, 1953. The pictures Leo took are in 53. The neck
Uh,
cavity is actually signed by Leo Fender.
wow.
And the neck, I had the neck being redone. The original was destroyed at the factory by fumes. And then the son put it on a 62 telly, which I tracked down through Bill Pandolfi in Florida, who bought
Sure.
the telly from the son or somebody else. And then it went to Lost in Space's Dr. Smith. Well, not that Dr. Smith, but a Dr. Smith. And it's a C with neck from 58, which I bought, which will be coming back here any day with Rob Lawrence. And then it's going into the Fender Museum.
Sweet.
And from Chuck Mayer, I think that's how he says it, I got this see-through cherry Firebird 5.
Nice.
And
That
then
looks
this
brand
is,
that looks brand new.
and then this is probably the cleanest 51 caster in the
Wow.
world. It's never had a screw turned. I will not be the first.
No.
And then this is, I've never owned a gold top, oddly enough. I've had bursts, including the one known as Donna. And this is a 56 Les Paul custom I got. And what I did is I would go to music stores like Elderly, where I found it, and go through their inventory. And this had been sitting for 12 years. And of course, they're an honest store, so they sold it to me for what they had it listed as at that point, which is much cheaper. And then I went to Groon's, and they had two things I wanted. And one was this 58 blonde Strat in
Is that a
excellent
Mary Kay
condition.
or
No, it's not. It's just a regular, but it's in beautiful shape.
Mhm.
And it was consignment. And they had that. And this Lloyd Lore, I don't know if you
Wow.
can see it, February 18th, 1924, also, both on consignment. So I tried to buy them both to get a deal, and they couldn't give me one. So I bought them separately and got a better price. And then Griffin Music had this 43 D28 that I got. Apparently, they sold it to some guy that didn't appreciate it. And the original owner was like, you guys need to get it back. And then they sold it to me, and the owner was like, yeah, it's in the right hands. And then Chicago Music had some of Scott Chinnery's collection.
Sure.
It's
Wow.
1838 Martin, one of
Look at
two.
that.
And so I
Coffin.
acquired that.
Did that have a coffin case?
A what?
Did it have
Yes.
the original
Well, no,
case?
it's not a coffin exactly. As a matter of fact, I will walk in my closet and show you what it is. I don't know. Is it showing up?
Yes, it is.
It looks more
Wow.
like a violin case.
Yeah, because it's a smaller body. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There's the Mint Firebird 1 inside its deal. And here's the cases for the Mr. Castor and the Custom and the Herringbone.
So just a
But
question. So you keep your guitars out on stands?
well, I've got like 15 up in my room. The others are downstairs, stashed. Like I've got a 0045 in 1925, but the bridge came off. Well, actually, it broke. So that's big and fixed. But this is my 27 0042 that I love playing. I mean, it's
Mhm.
amazing. This
Jeez.
was David Grisman's F4 that's in all the videos he's doing.
Oh yeah. Look at
And this
that.
is the guitar that came through Brian Ray from from McCartney's band,
Right.
63.
Was that a
And
deal? Was that from a dealer?
no, actually, a guy named John Dvorak bought it from Brian
Okay, I know who that
and
is.
then
Yeah.
sold it to me. And as soon as John came over and saw my guitars, he instantly became a best friend.
One guitar you didn't talk about, and this was an interesting group. There were actually, I know of two musicians in the group that were actually pretty well respected in LA, and the other two, one guy could play the drums, and
Are you
but
talking
Davy,
about the guy whose initials are RV?
yeah. So yeah, so Peter Tork, Michael Nesmith, and I think Mickey Dolenz played drums. They may have had the Wrecking Crew behind them. Uh, but you have a very rare guitar. You have a Tennessean conversion 12 string. You want to talk about that a little bit? Is that a
Yeah,
recent
actually, that's through
acquisition
Rob
for you?
Lawrence.
Is
Rob
that a
Lawrence got it from the guy who bought it from Michael's son.
okay?
And it's sitting in my closet in the other room because Rob's mom passed away about 2 months ago. So he's moving from San Diego to Flagstaff. And so we had everything shipped to my house because it's in between. Took up 3/4 of my garage. Um, it's crazy. I'm like, Rob, you need to. He didn't even come out when they unloaded it. But I also have the console that I bought from Trevor Rabin,
Wow.
from Owner of a Lonely Heart, that he
Yeah.
recorded it on. And I will only do part of that story because I kind of get a little blunt with people. Um, I bought the console. I said, "Can I get a picture of you with the console?" He goes, "Well, some kid took a picture of me and he said that I was producing him." And I said, "I worked with Peter Gabriel. I would never dream of telling anybody that you produced me." And then I got even kind of more rude after that. I won't say what I said, but it wasn't polite. Chris Squire showed up at the door. I didn't realize he was the size of a freaking statue. The
Yeah,
guy was huge. He was well, I'll just say he'd been drinking. We put the console in my international. I swear to God this happened. I'm looking up at the Hollywood sign. We turn on the radio, and Owner of a Lonely Heart comes on.
wow.
This is true. It was like, wow, okay. So I still have that it's sitting in my garage at the moment in a packed box. And yeah, that was a pretty amazing thing. Now the weird thing is Trevor showed up at one of the shows I did with Blondie Chaplin, and I didn't know he was there because I would have apologized to him. I when they did Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Genesis, I went back. Peter said, "Come back to the Ramada. It's where we are." Steve Hackett answered the door, and he goes, "Well, Peter's busy." And I said, "You weren't even the first choice. Get Peter for me." I apologized to him later. He told me he didn't remember that. When Bob Welch was here, was looking for a band. Um,
Boy,
well, I'm asking him.
I love Bob Welch.
I ask him, "Are we going to do your old tunes?" And his wife goes, "Well, Bob wants to do the old tunes as well as some new ones." And I go, "Oh, well, are we going to play local shows or go out of town?" She goes, "Well, we wanted that." And I asked something else. And then I said, "Can I ask Bob himself or should I just talk to you?" Because I tend to get a little blunt when people do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But
And
did you like his playing?
yeah, yeah, I thought it was great. He ended up with some local guys who are friends of mine.
Yeah.
But one is a great guitar player, but he's a shredder, and it didn't fit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of beside the point. And then, Bob took his life,
Yeah. He was in a
and
lot of
that was sad. Same
very
thing
sad.
with Ronnie Montrose. Ronnie came out here to work with my friends. I didn't realize he was, because Ronnie called me and told me, "Bring that Mint 56 Esquire. I want to see it." And I took it to him, and I realized that these were the guys I was in a band with that he was producing. And I'm like, why don't you guys call me? But Ronnie did. And he goes, well, you don't want to sell this guitar to me because I'm going to modify it.
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay. And we talked about Dan Hartman, and I will not say what he said, but it was funny at the time. And that's another like private story. So,
I always loved that first Montrose album still.
yes.
Yeah, it was a killer.
And then
So
Ronnie took his life too. So,
yeah. And Keith Emerson.
and Keith, I saw the ELP tour where Carl had the drums that went around and upside down and all over. And it was like, wow.
Were
Just
you
like
at that?
Willie Wilcox and Utopia. Utopia is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah. I just saw Todd Rundgren about 2 months ago here in Charlotte. And I got another, well, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was working at that record store, the manager was somewhat connected. We both loved this group called the Hello People that were kind of a
I
local thing.
remember.
Yeah. So he taps me on the shoulder one day at work and goes, you want to go to the studio and watch Todd do some producing of the Hello People? And I said, oh, yeah, okay. So I actually got to sit in the studio and watch Todd do his magic with the Hello People, who used to play at I think it was the Ice House. They were pretty much a regular thing at the Ice House in Pasadena. Great group, great musicians. But to see Todd, anyway, just saw him recently in Charlotte, and 2.5 hour show. He was awesome. Hasn't missed. He shows no sign of slowing down. Played guitar and just blew us away. He was still so good.
He's
Um,
here the 12th or the 14th.
go see him.
And if I
Oh
can
my
get
God.
someone to drive me, I will go. I kind of have to have people drive me if it's more than like 2 miles.
Yeah.
It's only about 5 miles, but still, I'm a little too kind of shaky to do it at this point. So, and I don't take any chances.
He had Prairie Prince on drums from the Tubes,
Yes,
who was also just. I mean, he just had an all-star band. It was great.
I remember he said when he produced the Tubes, they were just so all over the place. And I remember the story. Well, I'll tell it because it's been that long. And I think Bill Spooner passed away, where he said Spooner wouldn't do anything unless they put a thing of, well, his drugs out for him. And if they wouldn't, he wouldn't record. And Todd was like, they were so messed up and all over the place. Um, we actually opened a show for them at the country club.
Really, in the valley.
Yeah, in the valley that Howie put on, my friend Howie. And the Fab Four played after them. And then the Fab Four closed their show saying, thanks for coming. That's it. And I'm like, no, we're playing next. And they were kind of rude about it, but oh well, they were a great Beatle copy band.
Yeah.
But the
Were you,
Tubes, yeah, they were, oh my God.
I loved them.
Yeah, they were one of my favorite. I followed, they came from two different bands. And one was called Warren S. Richardson,
Didn't know that.
which was before Fee was in the band, and the other was the Red, White, and Blues band with what's his name on God, I can't think of the other guitar player's name offhand, and which is how I met my friend Mark McGee when I went to go see him, and he showed me the Rare Bird column. He had that guy's SG. And I saw it and I go, yeah, that's the SG he played. And then I talked to, God, why can't I think of his name? I can see him in my head.
Because we're old.
Steen, Roger Steen, guitar player. And Roger goes, I never had that guitar. And I go, I watched you play it.
Yeah, they
So
were
that
great.
was,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So it was Roger and the bass player, um, Guy Anderson. And I remember that they combined both bands without losing a single member. And it was like, wow. And I believe they were called the Naz at one point,
I thought
and
that
then
was Todd
changed the name
Rundgren.
again.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that was Todd Rundgren's. That's
right,
right. The before Alice Cooper had it,
right.
and then they had to change their name again. You're right. And
The I think White Punks on Dope was was one of the most clever songs ever written. It really it capsulized LA Hollywood at that period of time. There was no finer song that if you wanted to say what was that area like at that time, and that song described it.
yeah, before
It's a
they moved to
classic.
LA, they
Yeah.
played shows here, and I went and saw them, and they did every song as a complete stage show with the outfits.
Oh yeah, they were great. I did want to ask you, um, because we've talked about this a little bit in Genesis. I don't remember, and I brought this up with different artists. I don't remember these groups being called prog, King Crimson, Genesis, Gentle Giant. That wasn't a term, to the best of my memory, when they came out. I don't remember every, but that was a later term that was applied to that music. It was more like art. I don't know what it was. Gentle Giant, especially, was just different. I mean, that album when it hit our record store, just we couldn't stop playing it. We were saying, "Who is this?" And when you see where they came from, when you see Simon Dupree, which was kind of a popish, they had a number of hits on Hit Parade or whatever that show was in England. They had the girls chasing them in the cars and all, but they go from that to this Tony Visconti produced. Wow, what is this? It's amazing. I've never seen a group of musicians make that type of change. That was 180 degrees. And it makes you think, while they were doing all the pop stuff, did they have this stuff percolating in the background? And when you talk to them, yeah, that's kind of what they really wanted to play. And then they got two other members, Kerry Manier and Gary Green, and God, they gelled as a band. When I look at Prague, and I wanted to ask your opinion, Prague, I'm sorry, I'm using the term now, but why they were so different. They were always an ensemble. You never really had anybody trying to grab the attention. Yes, became John Anderson's. Yes, Genesis was kind of Peter Gabriel's Genesis there in the beginning. King Crimson, after a couple of great albums, became Robert Fripp in King Crimson. But you never had that with Gentle Giant. They played together. And to me, that's why there's a whole revival in their music. I mean, and excuse me for being a promoter here, but you've got hip hop artists sampling Gentle Giant. Go figure that. And
Yeah.
having hit songs. They were a tremendous group.
Well, I have kind of two things on that. When I played with Peter, I did it because I had a crush on his sister, Anne. And I was painfully shy, could not talk to girls. I didn't look her in the eye. I don't think I ever said hello. And so my girlfriends were girls who were aggressive. But I think the thing with the progressive is those guitar players didn't play blues licks. That's not how they approached it. And I noticed that because I was never a blues guy. I now appreciate that everything comes from that one, two minor five, which became four, and then the ones all became sevenths in rock in the late 50s, middle 50s, where they added a seventh, and they were doing Glenn Miller and Dorsey and all of that stuff. and then they simplified it. And oh my God, you know who Ken Curtis is?
From
He was
the
Festus.
Groundhogs. No.
He was Festus in
Oh
Gunsmoke.
yeah, actually I do. And his daughter went to my high school.
Oh,
She was in our group.
you know who he was originally?
No,
He replaced Sinatra in the Dorsey Band.
I had
But
no
people
idea about
don't
that.
realize that. They think of him as Festus. That's how big TV is compared to who he was in
I
real
had
life.
no idea. And you know what's weird is when you live in an industry town, you know everybody or you run into everybody. And it just so happened LA was an entertainment industry town. So you'd run, I remember running into Dave Crosby at a liquor store, or you just never knew who you'd bump into. And I tell my wife these things. She grew up in Charlotte. She goes, "Am I supposed to be impressed?" I go, "No, I'm just telling you." And it's not that it's anything cool other than it's where you lived. And I have a lot of friends that I went to high school with, and we didn't know this at the time, that their dads, a lot of their dads were musicians backing bands like Steely Dan. We're listening to Steely Dan, and my friend Bill Rotella's dad, Johnny Rotella, played on a half a dozen of their albums. We didn't know that at the time. And it's just you look back now and you kind of say, I wish I'd appreciated that. Didn't have any idea. No
My
idea.
mom was a dancer in movies. And when she was like 24, got in an accident that took out her knee and killed that career. And
Yeah.
then she and my dad got together in 51, got married. I was born in 52, a year later. And then they moved to Phoenix, which kind of killed her dreams, but that's another thing, which is why she believed in me and wanted me to succeed. I didn't really have the talent, but when I got to London, apparently I got to with other people who were what as talentless as I was, and it worked.
Yeah. Well, brother, you got two things. First off, this is probably the longest interview that I've done so far. And I promise both of us we have to cut out the political because, you know,
Because
yeah, just we don't need to like go out there and pontificate. Your background is so interesting, Kim. You're an encyclopedia of that period of music that I grew up with. And the fact that we bonded on the vintage guitar business. I don't even call it the business. The vintage guitar world is very, very cool. We know a lot of the same people. But again, I think the audience is going to love hearing your stories about your musical background, which it's what I discovered later about you. Just fantastic stories. And, you know, you meet people in the industry and they're name droppers. You're not a name dropper. These are just people you hung out with. These are people you worked with. And that authenticity really comes through. You can tell a name dropper or somebody that was on the fringes, but brother, you were right there in the trenches. That's what a fantastic life. Are you going to ever write a book on all this? You ever going to do a
there
doc?
are so many people that could do much better, like Paul Warren and Rob Lawrence and them. Mine would just be kind of footnotes in the chapter. But my music company, now that you got that name up behind you, is called Vintage is the Future.
I
And we've
like
got three: Vintage is the Future, and the future is vintage.
it. Interesting. Do you know what our tagline has always been?
What?
Vintage today, our tagline. So it's pure vintage and it's vintage today, vintage tomorrow. That's our,
Wow. It fits right in with what, I'm doing with Peter and Roby. And that's the first names of my guys that I'm dealing with.
if
When
we
they're
can,
ready to allow me to release that, I will.
I'd love to have you back on and, small world, if there's any way we can help you guys out with any promotion, not that you need it, but be more than happy to do it.
I love that.
Yeah, brother, this has been a lot of fun, and from was a very rough beginning here an hour and a half ago or so. Turned out to be I'm going to have fun editing this because there's so much information here. I wish you the best of health. You're very open about having a stroke. Nobody would ever be able to see that in you. It might have been more physical for you, but you're as sharp as a tack, brother. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed chatting with you today. It's really been
Yeah, I've been
fun.
very blessed that mentally I feel alert and fine. But like I said, I'm just more wobbly when I walk. If I'm just sitting, I don't know that it happened. It's
Yeah,
like it didn't happen. So there's so many people that cannot say that.
right. By the way, the phone didn't freeze up once. Yay!
I noticed that we finally got the Zoom to work, which was weird that it didn't before. So,
It ain't my favorite application, but it is what it is, you know. Um,
goodness.
let's talk soon. And can you hang for just a second after I stop the
Sure.
recording? I wanted to chat with you about one thing in particular.
Okay.
I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as I did. It was a wild trip for an hour and a half, and we're going to have Kim back as soon as he launches his new project. We're real excited to hear about that, and thank you for joining the Insanity. We'll talk to you soon.